Hi there. In today's video, I'll be discussing some notes I've been working on regarding operating in a woodland or mountainous environment. And I'm going to do one more video about operating environments, which will be winter conditions. So I'm going to hike a little bit further down the trail here and get set up and go over those notes that I've got. And if you have any notes that you think are relevant for this type of operating condition, then please feel free to leave them below in the comment section. All right, I guess this is as good as any spot to take a break, and I figured I'd set up the camera and let you look at a little bit of scenery for a minute. So in episode 26, I had touched on VHF wavelengths and how those compare to UHF in an urban environment. And while VHF wavelengths can also penetrate structures in an urban environment, VHF is still more effective in that type of setting. However, VHF is a good choice for rural and some wooded areas, and the longer wavelength makes VHF favorable for a rural or wooded environment because you can cover longer distances. If you're in an area that has a lot of hills, then you might find VHF transmissions have success in being reflected over that type of terrain and provide better performance compared to UHF. Since both bands operate through line of sight, any obstruction that gets in the way, whether you're on UHF or VHF, will weaken the signal to some extent. And that does include obstructions like trees and vegetation. Operation of radios in mountainous areas, kind of like the one I'm in right now, have similar challenges as cold weather environments. And another important note about mountainous terrain is it can be a poor electrical conductor, and you may want to consider using an antenna like a dipole along with a counterpoise. In episode 22, I discussed using a counterpoise in desert environments, and I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. Also mentioned in that episode, and this does apply to any environment you'll find yourself in, antenna height will always be a factor when trying to extend your range. And if you find yourself at the edge of your communications range, then you might want to try to get a little bit higher ground and reattempt your transmission once you're a little bit higher up. Another factor to keep in mind which affects performance is the density of the wooded area you're operating in. There's an argument to be made for using UHF in wooded areas because it can have a little bit more success in navigating around certain obstructions. However, the trade-off is VHF is capable of covering longer distances. If you have a clear line of sight, then VHF is favorable because your signal has a better chance of getting further out. If you're working with repeaters in this type of environment, as you may have guessed, mountainous terrain makes selection of repeater sites an important consideration. Terrain limitations make repeater stations an important factor for reliable communications. As with a desert climate, there are some maintenance procedures you may want to consider for a wooded or mountainous environment to keep your equipment in working order. One of the conditions you'll encounter are fluctuations in temperature, which those vary based on the time of year. So you want to regularly inspect your gear for condensation or water that may have seeped into the charging areas, speaker, controls, buttons, or any of the accessory jacks on your equipment. And regularly cleaning your equipment from moisture, dirt, and debris, that's really the first step in keeping your gear in good operational order. Another thing that you want to regularly inspect is your antenna. And antennas are usually one of the first things on a radio that get damaged if you happen to drop or fall on your radio. If you use your radio on a daily basis, then regular wear and tear is eventually going to add up, and you may notice cracks or tears on the antenna, which those will affect the overall performance. If you start to notice your antenna is showing heavy wear, you may want to consider replacing it. If you're running into suspected range issues, then a culprit could be damage to the antenna due to the long-term wear and tear, and that usually results in a diminished physical connection between the radio and the antenna. If you notice your battery is starting to drain a lot quicker than usual, you may want to you may be at a point where you need to replace it. And exposing your equipment to varying weather conditions, look for cracks on both the battery and radio housing. This could expose the internals of your battery or the radio's circuit board, if it's on the radio's case, to dirt and moisture and damage, and that'll damage your internal components. Some preventive measures you can take include storing your equipment at ambient room temperature, away from direct sunlight or heat sources, and keeping them dry. Well, that's about all the notes I've got for now, and I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching.